Okay, so I said I was going to do a review on my 261 Stihl. Got red oak here. Y'all seen it was a little over a foot. A little over a foot. Yeah, about 15 and a half inches or so. So this is a long-term review, I guess you could say. My thoughts and opinions on this chainsaw. I would give it a 10 out of 10. I've had this saw for, I guess, almost 3 years now, maybe 4. Shoot, I can't even remember. The only thing I've ever done to this saw was I just recently, I just bought this bar maybe a month ago, maybe. Just bought the bar and a handle. I had to replace the handle on it because stupid me was clearing some land, and I set the chainsaw out, you know, to the side, just trying to get stuff done, and I picked up a stump and just, you know, spun around and flung it and threw it right on my chainsaw. Luckily it wasn't a big stump, and it more or less, it just broke the handle right here. So this is a replacement handle just off eBay. Now it was a little salty for what it is, but I'm pretty sure it was a OEM handle. But anyway, other than that, that is the only things that I have done to the saw or needed to do. It's still got the original spark plug in it. And some of you may say, wow, you just ain't run it. You know, I make a living with this thing. You know, y'all see me use it on other videos, and I was using it way before I ever started making videos. But it's even got the original air filter on it. All I do is I just take it off, and of course I just did it the other day. I knocked the dust out of it, and I put it back on there. Of course y'all can see it's filthy, but you know, it gets used. I use this thing. It's not just a weekend warrior, whatever you want to call it. It's a daily, almost a daily use. And I did put a plug for the decomp. On a saw this small, I just don't think that you need a decomp. And I was watching a old Cotton Top video. He actually don't live but maybe 30-45 minutes from me here in Mississippi, and I watch a lot of his stuff, like his stuff, and he was doing a review on some Stihl saws, and I seen him put that basically a decomp valve delete kit, if you want to call it that, in there. And I said, well, shoot, I'm gonna do that, because you know you can lose compression over time out of a decomp valve. It can leak. So anyway, did I see a difference in it? No, it's not gonna make a difference in your horsepower or whatever, but let me pull up, see what this saw is rated at. All right, I got the specs pulled up here. The power head weight is 10.8 pounds. That's just the head, it's not counting the bar. Mine has a 20-inch bar on it, anywhere from 16-20 inch bars. I think it handles the 20-inch bar, you know, great. Well, say that I've never put another bar on it. That's what it came with, and that's what I put back on it. Automatic chain 0.325. I only run this one does have another chain on it. Of course, it's not the original chain, but this is only the second chain I've ever put on it. This one's an Oregon chain. I thought it had a Stihl on it. Yeah, it's an Oregon chain. So engine powers 4 bhp, fuel capacity 16.9 ounce, displacement is just a little over 3 cubic inches. So I've only ever ran the Stihl 2-cycle engine oil, just because the place, you know, I go and get my stuff, you know, it's all right there together. Bar oil, I've ran different type bar oils. I picked this up the other day. Just started running it, but it's either that or a Stihl bar oil. Bar oil, I just don't see a difference in it. Now, the thing I think has made the biggest difference in this saw's life is I only put ethanol free gas in it. That's all that's ever been ran in this saw. And y'all see me crunk it up like that was its first crank. It wasn't warm. It hasn't been crunk all day. I just put gas in it. It was completely out of gas. It usually don't take that many pulls to start it, about 3 pulls and she'll start. Of course, it's got the auto idle, whatever you want to call it, the M-tronic carburetor on it, smart carb. I've had 0 issues. I may eat those words in a little bit, but the long-term review of this thing, I mean, some guys want bigger saws. Some guys may think, well, it's just not strong enough or whatever. I need something bigger. Me and my brother-in-law fight all the time because he wants to run the biggest saw he can, which he owns nearly every saw Stihl made in the Pro Series. So we get into it all the time about it because, you know, he'll go grab the 880 or his 660 or 460 or whatever it is, you know, with a 30-something inch bar on it, you know, to cut a 20-inch tree. But you know, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like this tree, this is a monster tree. I have cut down trees that's really bigger than this tree with that 261. I mean, you got to think, you got a 20-inch bar, you can get through a 40-inch tree roughly. You know, that's a monster tree. Now, sometimes when you're bore cutting, do you want a solid to penetrate all the way through? Yeah, I mean, it helps to have that sometimes, but not every time you need to be able to do that. So don't think, well, I gotta have a bigger saw to take down a monster tree. You don't. You just have to, you got to know how to use the saw. And I have taken, this is the only saw that I've ever needed, and like I said, I've taken down some monster trees. Y'all seen the trees that I was cutting up on the last job? That one pine tree was pushing 30 inches. I mean, this is the saw, 20-inch bar. You can, and what the reason why I don't really want a bigger saw is because y'all see me a lot, y'all. I'm in and out of the excavator a lot, and I'm toting this thing around a lot, so I need something light and something that's not just going to wear me out. And this saw is very easy to tote around, and you can run it all day and it not, you know, wear you out. That's the difference in your pro saws and say your farm boss and your homeowner saws, is the power to weight ratio. Like if I got the same saw, but like a farm boss or whatever, the saw is going to be heavier but less horsepower, less power to it. And it also, the cases are different. Like I think this is an all magnesium case. The ones on the other saws are just a heavy material. Not to say that they're not great saws. Like to me, you don't need a pro saw unless you're running it every day, or you know, you need it to perform every day. Then you need a pro saw, because they're worth the money, you know. And speaking of money, like I think in the last video, I did buy another 261, a brand new one, to have here, or I can have one, and if my dad's here running the sawmill, then he can have one, and we don't have to fight over it. I should have already had a backup saw, which I got one, but it's just way too heavy. It's a Husqvarna 372 that I built, but it's way too heavy. So bought another saw, and the price on this saw now, I think, was $680. I had the tag around here somewhere, but I lost it. But I think it was $680 is what it wound up being out the door. That's with a 20-inch bar and the chain, you know, ready to go. And one thing I do want to mention, or you know, kind of give y'all a little insider thing about these saws. My brother-in-law's had the same issues with his. Once these things get hot, especially on a hot day, you've been running them a while, and if you set them in the sun or whatever, and you go to crank them, if you try to use your auto idle, whatever you want to call this, you're going to think it's flooded, because you'll crank and crank, and it'll start up, and then it'll go dead, and you know, you'll try it again, and then you'll think it's flooded. The best thing to do, if you've been running these saws for a good minute and you know that they're good and hot, whenever you pick it back up, do not use this. First, just pull on it. It should start right up nearly on the first pull, but pull on it about 3 or 4 times, and then if it doesn't start, then use your auto. Then use that, because what I have found, once these saws are hot, they do not like for you to try to use that feature on them, and they will not run. They'll just sit there, and they may crank, but then they'll bog down and die, and then you'll get pissed off and say, well, this saw ain't worth a crap. That may be every saw, but I don't think so. It's just it's what I have found the best thing to do with these saws right here is just when they're hot, just pull them, and they'll usually go. And also, if you do start it after it's hot and it wants to die after you get it running or whatever, then again go back to your auto idle, auto tune, whatever you want to call it. This is it's setting your carbs, all it's doing. So the last thing I want to talk about is this little dude right here. Now, before all y'all get bent out of shape, oh, you ought to just be able to use a file, you ought to just be able to do it by hand, you don't need a guide. And I was once that person. Like, that used to be me, okay? I used to be like, man, whoever can't sharpen a chainsaw with just a file, they don't need to be in the woods, they don't need blah blah blah, okay? That was me. But I don't know what it is about these new chains. At least my experience, even this organ chain and the Stihl chains, if you get the recommended file that they say, if you got this pitch chain, if you got whatever, you need to use this file. If you do that and you try to do it by hand, you're going to screw it up. And let me explain why. Because, let me see if I can show a bit of focus. I can't get the stupid thing to focus, but anyway, you got, this is your gullet down in here. Okay, what happens is, if you just try to freehand it with a recommended file that they say to use, what's going to happen is right on this very top edge right here, what's going to happen is it's going to just keep making a U in here. You're not going to stay up on top of this edge right here, which that's really where your bite comes in. You got what you call a semi chisel and a full chisel. This is a semi chisel. Basically the difference is one stays sharper longer and one takes a bigger bite but dulls quicker. Your semi chisel will last longer, but it's not going to take as big a bite, and you know, your full chisel chain, it's going to take some chunks out, but it's going to get dull quicker. So what the dogs are barking at. But anyway, the reason why I went and bought this tool is because I was going through the last chain I had. I take that back, I've had 3 chains. This is the 3rd chain. The first chain did good for a while. It seemed like I could resharpen it, you know, pretty good. But the second chain, like, I would sharpen it and it just seemed like it was just as bad. Never would get, you know, like that fresh cut you first get with a new chain. And what wound up happening is I just kept trying to sharpen and sharpen and sharpen it. Well, basically the chain wore out before I ever, you know, really used up the tooth. I ran out of slack. Like, I couldn't tighten the chain anymore. But what happens is you make your gullet too much. Try to explain this. The gullet gets too round on the inside. So what you want more or less almost, I wish this stupid thing would focus. It ain't going to. But you want your face of your tooth to have just a little bit of radius to it, not a whole lot. So what happens if you try to freehand it, you just keep making your radius bigger and bigger, and you lose your cutting edge. So what this tool does, of course it's a little bit confusing once you figure it out, it keeps the file up high enough to not let it, see, there's the tooth, it keeps it up on the tip of the tooth, and you always have that sharp point. Now, like I said, I was the guy that said, oh, I can just do it by hand. I can do it by hand better than other people can with a guide or whatever. And it also, you have a file on here that keeps your rakers, it files them at the same time. So if you're having trouble like I did trying to freehand it and just don't understand what's going on, go get you one of these. It's well worth the money. I will always have this from now on. I may just really suck at sharpening the chain, but I don't think so, because I've done it enough in the past that it worked fine, and I didn't need that. But just something about these new style chains or something, it's just, I will say this, I think you could get by with it if you use a bigger file. Do not use the recommended, go up to the next size of file. That way you can keep your file up on this top edge right here, because that's where the cutting is. If you don't have that sharp tip right there on that, you're just not going to cut. It may seem like it's just, you're not pulling out any big chunks, it's just dust. And when you start seeing dust come out, a lot of dust, then you know your chain's dull, and there's no sense in sitting there fighting it. What I did, yeah, on this one I did take out your little screen emission bull crap. The new one, I think it's still in there, but I'll wind up taking it out. So anyway, this is my personal use, my personal views on the 261. Like I said, it's what I pretty much make a living with. So, and I'm not into I want the saw with the most horsepower, the biggest bar I can put on there, because that's what I need. No, I need something that I can sling around all day and not be wore out and not hate the saw. And I also need something to perform. That's one thing that I am about, is performance. And that's why I bought another saw. Like I started to get a 362. I started to just get the next one up, and I know Stihl has come out with other models, like they got the 400. I'd really like to run it, but the store I get most of my stuff from, they didn't have any, and I wasn't going to special order one. Like, I needed one now. But I bought this saw because I've used it. I've beat the shit out of it, for one thing. It usually rides around in the back of my truck every day, getting rained on. And that's why I want to do this review, is because this saw has been used. It has been put through hell. Like, I should feel bad. I should take better care of it, but when you're blowing and going every day, you just kind of lose that new, I guess. Like the other one, it'll be taken a lot better care of, because my dad, he's real OCD about stuff. So I take this one with me, and I leave the new one here. But like I said, I'm doing this review because I've used it. I've put it through the paces, and it has held up. Like I said, the only thing I've ever done is I put a new bar on it, and there's nothing wrong with the old bar. I just thought, well, it's been on here for 3 or 4 years. I just put a new one on it. Bought a new bar and put that on there, and a new handle. That's the only things that I've had to do. It might run a little better with a new spark plug, but to me, it's still running. It runs just as good as the new one. It actually cranks better than the new one. The new one needs a little bit more time to be broke in. Like, it's just had maybe 2 tanks of gas run through it. Anyway, that's my personal views on it. It's my preference. I think it's a great saw. I think it's worth every penny. Especially if you're going to be dependent on it, which I am. So anyway, I hope y'all like that. May not care, may say, well, shoot, man, I don't care about no daggum saw. But some of you might be in the market for one, or might be looking for a different saw or wondering what I use, but that's what I use. So, and I'm gonna use it until the day she lays down. All right, well, I appreciate y'all watching. Y'all please just like the damn video. That's all you got to do. Adios. What y'all little mongrels messing with over here? Huh? Oh, I see. They're over here terrorizing Franklin. Franklin, you better get out of here. Two little pitties are gonna have you for lunch. Get on out of here. That's the second time I told you to leave them turtles alone. And you too over there trying to hide.